As a solo creator on YouTube creating bike content, one of the biggest challenges is just filming myself. I don't have the big budget to hire a crew to follow me around on a bike with a camera. Last year, Insta360 sent me over the Insta1R, and I've been slowly incorporating it into my workflow. And a couple weeks ago, they sent over their new 1X2, and both have interesting advantages. If you're interested in filming your bike ride using a 360 camera, you definitely want to watch the rest of this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, riding party pace, and living the supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. The Insta1R has been out for a while, so on paper it seems a lot more compelling than this guy. This is the new, the Insta360 1X2. In using both, there are some instances when this one actually outperforms the 1R. I know there's a ton of other tech reviews out there that go into all the features and details, which I'm not going to get into. I'm going to talk about how I use it to film my bike rides and which one I think is better for my style of shooting, and also some interesting nuances between the two. So first off, one big difference is the form factor. The 1R is more like your GoPro style action cam, and of course the 1X2 is it's like a stick. This seems like an odd shape for an action cam, but it actually provides some distinct advantages, and one of them is this. It's got a built-in quarter 20. This seems like such a small detail, but check this out, guys. When you screw it into a selfie stick, filming stick, whatever you want to call it, you'll notice that the lens is always in line with the stick. What this means is that when it does its software magic to erase the selfie stick, you don't have to worry about the lenses being off angle. Looking at the 1R, as you can see, it's got a GoPro mount, which is both good and bad. When you run it on the selfie stick, there's always the slightest chance that it'll bump off like this. And when it does the software magic to delete the selfie stick, if you don't get it always straight like you do with the 1X2, it leads to some really strange looking visual aberrations on the footage. A very, very slight detail, but it makes a huge difference when you film like I do, which is usually with this extended in my hands on the handlebars, holding this out in front of me. It's so much better to have a fixed point and not to have to worry about any tilting. Another interesting small physical change, but makes a huge difference, is actually the lens cap. I know this sounds really dumb and insignificant, but if you film like I do, where I toss this in a bike bag, it makes a huge deal. So let me show you. When you put the lens cover on, it's a really snug fit. Like, there's no way that this is gonna pop off by accident. Let's compare that with the 1R. I mean, it does a pretty good job with protecting the lens, but this friction fit is so much looser than on the 1X2. And there have been instances where I've put this in a bag, gone for a ride, and then when I go to actually use it, the cap is off, and I'm paranoid that I've scratched the 360 lenses. From the standpoint of not having to worry about constantly protecting the lenses, I think the 1X2 again beats out the 1R in that respect. Another small but subtle difference is weight. The 1X2 is marginally lighter, but probably more important is the way the weight is distributed. It's in line with the stick, so as you hold it, even though it's extended and your hands are getting fatigued, it doesn't want to rotate as much. Comparing that with the 1R, it does weigh a little bit more, and because the weight is distributed horizontally like this, I find as I ride on bumpy roads, the camera just wants to slightly tilt. That means in post, you have to kind of correct for this camera movement. With the 1X2, it's much easier to just keep it in a certain position and leave it there. There is one place where the 1R, because of its form factor, actually I think is a little bit better than the X2, and that is when you mount it to a chesty cam. As you can see, when you put it in the case, it terminates with a typical GoPro mount. It's pretty easy to find spare adapters and slap this onto a chesty mount to get some POV footage. Whereas with the X2, because it does terminate in a quarter 20, you have to get a not very common, slightly specialized part which converts the quarter 20 into a GoPro style mount. And even at that, when you mount it on your chest, you've got this kind of big thing like flapping around. In terms of image quality, I'm going to throw up some footage that I just took today and put it side by side, and they're pretty close. I will say, doing some pixel peeping, the 1X2 just seems the slightest bit more saturated and also the tiniest bit more contrasty. On both cameras, the settings were identical. They were both on the vivid setting. Both do offer a log setting. I tend not to use that because it just puts more work on the computer, which is already working pretty hard with the 360 footage. So the One X2 is slightly more vivid and has slightly more contrast, but otherwise it's both pretty close. I don't think image quality is an absolute deciding factor when choosing between these two. I do think, however, the form factor does dictate which works better for a certain application. So which of these two should you get? It really depends on how you're going to shoot and what kind of perspectives you're going to try to get. If you're going to do a lot of chesty cam footage, then I think the One R still has a better form factor to execute that. I also like the fact that you can put in larger batteries. I don't really use the other modules as much as I thought I would. I usually just leave it on the 360 cam because it works pretty good. But putting this on the chesty, it basically emulates having a gimbal on your chest without having another big clunky thing to wear. However, if you're going to be filming a lot on the stick, let's say holding this out in front of you on your handlebars or moving it to the side to get a profile shot, then I think the One X2 is actually the better camera. You'd never have to worry about this being off axis and screwing up, deleting the selfie stick in post. It's also slightly lighter, so less fatiguing on the hand. And like I mentioned, the way the weight is distributed, it's a little bit easier to hold it in a certain orientation. So if you're on the fence about getting a 360 camera, right now is actually a good time to buy one. Insta360 is having a spring sale, and you can get a slight discount off of accessories with either of these cameras. Interestingly, if you do buy one, this is their older style selfie stick. And as you can see in the retracted position, it's a little bit shorter. The newer one is a little bit longer, it has another additional segment, but probably more importantly, it's got this slightly tacky rubberized grip, which makes a difference when you're holding it one-handed on your handlebar. This one does have a softer handle section, but just this little bit of tactile grip makes this one much easier to hold and less fatiguing when you're trying to keep the camera from rotating. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you guys want me to do a video on my workflow with working with 360 cameras. I know most of you here are all about the bike stuff, but sometimes I do review tech things. If you want to see that workflow video, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, don't forget to support the channel. Don't forget to visit our merch store. We've got a ton of Party Pace patches and of course 90s inspired stickers, all that good stuff. And as always, keep the supple side down.